Welcome back to another edition of the Disney Dish Podcast with Jim Hill. It's me, Len Testa, and this is our show for the week of Schmurz Day, September 21st, 2020. On the show today, news and photos. In our main segment, Jim talks about a pre-Disneyland opening memo from C.V. Wood to Walt Disney. Let's get started by bringing in the man who grew up just a stone's throw away from where all those people had mysterious head injuries. It's Mr. Jim Hill. Jim, how's it going?
It's going well. Len, have I ever told you about my head injury, the one that happened while I was in the military?
No, go ahead. Does this go a long way towards explaining a lot of things, Jim?
Oh, yes, Len. So I had literally just gone to the base newspaper, and I was trying to impress my new editors there. And they're opening the schools. So we're going to do a story about, the on-base schools are opening. My editor goes, we need a picture. But we're going, the press today. So it's like, not to worry. I grab the official government vehicle. I drive over to the school. I pull into the parking lot and I hammer on the brakes, throw open the door, step out of the car to take the picture. But the thing is, the car door continues its momentum, hits the side of the vehicle, and then bounces back and hits me in the head.
Oh, so it didn't have a stop on it. It just kept opening.
Just kept opening. Okay, so
right.
I get the picture. I go back to the base newspaper, and my editor's like, "You're bleeding," and it's like, "Oh, it's nothing." And it's like, "No, there's literally blood running down your face. We need to send you to the base hospital." I end up in the emergency room on a table, and they drape you over with a cloth there's a hole in it so they can do the stitching. And so the doctor's, talking with me, and it's like, so how did you get this injury? It's like, well, I got my head caught in a car door. He has to step away from the table because he's laughing so hard.
I'm just saying.
So now the VA recognizes that, I was wounded in action.
I was going to say, did you get a Purple Heart from that?
More of a bruised forehead.
I mean, at least you were enthusiastic about your first assignment, and that's what's important.
And speaking of heads, Len, you have your camera on, and oh my God, your hair.
I started to condition, so it's got a little bit more volume in it.
A little more volume?
A little more volume.
There are people at NASA who are arranging for satellites to change their paths.
It's not even as high as it gets. Like later on tonight, it'll be like twice as high. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
thank you.
Moving on.
All right. Let's do a shout out to subscribers over at disneydish.bandcamp.com. Jim, another record week for Bandcamp subscribers, and thank you all very much. I hope you're enjoying our walkthroughs of the parks. Coming up, Jim and I have Bandcamp exclusive shows on everything from alternate concepts for Epcot rides to how Ringling Brothers and Disney collaborated on a special event in the parks. And thanks to new subscribers Jeff F., Melinda E., and Spacey28, and longtime subscribers Blake D., Clemens I., and Jenny Furby. Jim, it's a little-known fact that the London scene in Peter Pan's Flight contains an accurate real-time map of city traffic, and these are the folks who maintain that map in a little room inside the attraction. In fact, if you listen closely, you can sometimes hear Jenny say, "Oi, the Duncans are headed to the shops," as they rush to get another little car onto the streets. True story.
Oh, that is so much more appealing than the bicycle chain story. So we're going to go with that one.
Let's go with this. On to the news. Folks, the Disney Dish News is brought to you by Storybook Destinations, trusted travel partner of the Disney Dish Podcast. For a worry-free travel experience every time, book online at storybookdestinations.com. Jim, every show should begin with a round of self-congratulations.
Ooh, another one. Okay, good.
On last week's show, we said that it was possible that some theme parks would stay open later around the holidays to take advantage of the lunch and dinner crowd. Lo and behold, the day after that show came out, Epcot announced it would be shifting its park hours to 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. rather than 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. beginning the first week of November. So that's right after daylight savings time ends, as you noted on the last show. Mm-hmm. So it'll give Epcot another hour of operating after sunset. Jim, you've got to think this is both the lunch dinner crowd and to showcase some holiday decorations at night, right?
Gotta be.
Yeah, I think so too. I think some of that stuff looks much better at night.
Mm-hmm.
In other news, Disney Cruise Line extends its closure through December 6th. We'd heard rumors that some of the crew was being told of a possible Thanksgiving sailing. That is sadly not going to happen. I also booked a December 1st cruise out of Galveston, which also isn't going to happen. I'm sad to not be on a cruise ship. I'm not that sad about having to miss Galveston, which I don't think is a great port. But Jim, from DCL's perspective, I think they've got to be hoping that those Christmas cruises can still happen because those are the most expensive sailings of the year. And it's a chance for them to make some decent money in an otherwise bad year. What do you think?
Anything at this point. I mean, I don't know if you saw the story this morning. I forget which of the cruise lines it is, but they're selling, I want to say, 18 ships.
Carnival across all of its lines is
Yeah.
selling 8. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough time for that industry. And yeah, anything that would help here, getting them Christmas cruises going would be great.
Yeah, I think so too. Also, Disney said they confirmed that the Wish, the next ship in the fleet, is delayed, but I don't think they said how long. So I know that the first cruise wasn't supposed to be until 2022, and now it's going to be later. And then that's understandable.
I don't know if you saw the actual official statement, but they explained that the delay was due to the supply chains, that they could not get the materials necessary to finish building the boat, which that's an interesting explanation.
Yeah, the supply chain to build a boat is literally from around the world. So even the smallest disruption in that throws off everybody's schedule because things are built in sequence. So if something early in the sequence is off, it displaces everything later in the sequence. Yeah, that totally makes sense.
Okay.
Speaking of moving around, Disneyland and other California theme parks are having discussions with the state about opening up again soon. Jim, have you seen this?
I love the polite term you used there, Len. Discussions. Right.
So they actually came out and said that they appealed to the governor to Governor Newsom to let them reopen, and the governor has said in the last couple of days that they're going to have discussions with the theme parks soon on that. What do you think is the holdup on the state side?
Governor Newsom has erred on the side of caution right from the get-go with COVID. And I just think his concern is we reopen these things. What happens if we have a second flare-up? And so he's
contact tracing.
Yeah, but at the same time, I know it's a balancing act. You have tens of thousands of people who work at these parks who are waiting to go back to work. And it's just sort of like the benefit of people back on the payroll weighed against the fact that
it's a risk,
Yeah, so let's hope these discussions happen quickly and they can settle on some way of getting these parks open.
I think one of the other issues that Newsom has to be thinking about is Disneyland is, again, the world's largest regional theme park. So if there is a spreading event in California, virtually all of the people who would be infected also live in California, which would make California's numbers go up in addition to other many bad things. Whereas in Walt Disney World, if DeSantis is looking at this the same way, the cold calculation would be, well, most of these people are coming from out of state. Therefore, Florida's numbers wouldn't look that bad, right?
My gift to Ohio. There we go.
Exactly. Whereas Newsom, I'm not saying that this is the right way to think about things. I'm saying it's part of the political calculus that elected officials go through. And I am 100% convinced that happens. So. Anyway, hopefully they get open soon. I think, if there's one thing that we can take out of, the Walt Disney World being open now for 2 months, there hasn't been a breakout that's been traced back to any theme park in Orlando. So I think they're doing a fantastic job there.
Give them credit.
All right, Jim, Disney's filed another patent application actually today that I wanted to talk about. This one is called gaze-based rendering for audience engagement. And the thing I wanted to point out here is the image that they're showing. And Jimmy, you can see it on our show notes. We'll include it in the show notes as well. But it's a bunch of people sitting on chairs in front of a very large television screen. And the idea is that there'll be hardware, computer hardware, in the computer screen that will figure out where your eyes are looking on the computer screen and then do something in that area that you're looking at. So, Jim, for me, when I'm looking at this image, I'm thinking this is sort of the next generation of Turtle Talk with Crush.
You're not wrong. Disney understands that what gets people through the front gate is its characters. And especially in a window of time like this, where character interaction is somewhat problematic. I mean, I know you've talked very enthusiastically about the character cavalcades, which have just switched over to their Halloween theming. But something like this, where you could have a moment where you're actually interacting with an individual character, you yourself, and to be part of a group dynamic where they use the example here of an elephant, a bunny, a frog, a giraffe, and some sort of lizard.
I thought that was the Geico gecko.
Well, you got to work that sponsor in somehow.
Exactly.
But, you can sit there and have an interaction with the character on screen,
Okay, so I didn't think of this when I was looking at the patent, but you bring up a good point here because the audience being shown here is not a theater full of people. It's 3 people.
Yeah.
So you could do character interactions, but remotely, but with a small group. So this might be the pandemic answer to character greetings.
You know what this makes me think of? Is that moment in Muppet Vision 3D where I'm Waldo, the spirit of 3D, and it's like everyone thinks I'm talking to them, but I'm only talking to you.
Talking to you, exactly.
And so this would actually finally deliver on that show moment. It only took us 30 years.
20, 30 years. It's fine.
We're here.
These things take time.
Okay.
Speaking of in-park things, we have listener questions, Jim. This one's from Steve, who writes, how much does the lack of shows, parades, and meet and greets affect wait times? Can you estimate what percentage of a daily park's attendance is being entertained by one of those attractions? I'm thinking that Walt Disney World will be hard-pressed to increase park capacities without these types of attractions unless they want to negatively affect guest experience. This would also carry over to the difficulty in opening up additional resorts. So it's a good point. You don't want to open up additional resorts if you're going to put people in those hotel rooms who then can't get into the parks. That's definitely bad customer service. In terms of shows, parades, and meets and greets, the shows and parades themselves attract many thousands of people per day. And if you're talking about something like the studios where they're running Beauty and the Beast, the Indiana Jones show, and Disney Junior and things like that, if those things are running simultaneously as they would on a very busy day, you're talking about 5, maybe 10,000 people an hour being entertained on those things. And for a park like the studios, that's a considerable percentage of the total number of people who are in the park. So if you think about 10,000 people an hour, the park can handle maybe 60, 65,000 people. That's 15, 16% of the people in the park in a show at any given time. So when they're not there, obviously the wait time goes up dramatically. So just as an example, I calculated around the time that Galaxy's Edge was opening that exclusive of the shows, you could have about 18 to 24,000 people in line maximum at Hollywood Studios at any given time. Actually, I think that includes the shows. So if you take out the 7,000 to 10,000 people who are serviced by the shows, that's basically a third of the park's capacity. So that would increase the wait times by at least that much more. So in the studios, for example, that would be one of the instances where there'd be an instance of the park being the most affected by not having shows and meets and greets. Meets and greets actually doesn't affect wait times at other attractions that much because even on the best day possible, imagine it takes 30 seconds to do a meet and greet. And 30 seconds is not very much time at all. My guess is it's more around 90 seconds per meet and greet. But at 30 seconds, you can only do 120 of those in an hour. So figure 3 or 4 people per group. That's maybe 360 to 480, call it 450 people an hour. That's basically a water slide in terms of capacity, not very much at all. Now, Disney's got a bunch of those in the Magic Kingdom. They've got both sides of the Storybook Circus meet and greets. They've got 2 of those. They've got a number of them in Fantasyland. So if you've got 5 or 6 of them, it's still a couple thousand people an hour. But in a park as big as the Magic Kingdom, it's basically negligible in terms of wait times. So, but still, it's the shows and parades that they miss. Now, parade, obviously in the Magic Kingdom, that's going to draw so many people in that it'll actually lower the wait times on the edge attractions, the attractions in Tomorrowland, the attractions in Frontierland, as people go to see those parades. And that's definitely a noticeable effect. So you don't see the 3 p.m. dip, for example, in Space Mountain that you would normally see when the parade is running.
Have you seen the holiday ad campaign that Disney has now for Orlando?
No, I haven't seen it yet. I've seen the one that the Florida Tourism is doing. What's the one that Disney's doing?
It is happy people, all of them wearing their masks, but they're doing like selfies of Dumbo flying behind them with the castle. But again, it's always hammering home the mask theme. It's to a music track for Hi-Ho. And just stressing that, that this is really the time you want to go to Disney World for these special holiday offerings. But completely on message about we are wearing masks out here, but you can still have fun. But I have to wonder, something like the Castle Light Show, but, got to wonder about that schedule. And
I would promote the heck out of that on a 30-second video ad. So you could do the Snope on Main Street. You could do the Castle Projection Show. Everyone would be wearing masks. You do the cavalcades. And then you just do 10 seconds or 15 seconds of maybe 12 seconds would compromise of, families on classic rides, Space Mountain, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, right? In Fantasyland with the castle behind you. Half of our readers could put together this ad with basically with video they've already got on their phones and an example of and a copy of Pro Tools, right? We could all put together this ad. I mean, it basically sells itself. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Here's an email from Glenn. And Jim, I want your input on this because I've never heard of it. Glenn writes, I'd like the Disney Dish to cover the World Cruise offered in the 1970s on the Seven Seas Lagoon and Bay Lake, in addition to details of the side wheel steamboats used and the eventual addition of the stop at Treasure/Discovery Island. It'd be interesting to cover proposed Walt Disney World projects discussed in the cruise's narration. For example, two projects I've never heard discussed anywhere but on the cruise were a proposal to set up a nightly luau on one of the Seven Seas Lagoon Islands and the idea of an international shopping mall that would be built between the Contemporary Resort and the Magic Kingdom. Jim, I've never heard of any of this.
You've seen art for these two things, the Oseola Class sidewinders that were only really in service in the 70s at the Walt Disney World Resort. There was the Ports of Call and I want to say the Southern Seas. And what was really great about these two boats is at night, they basically pulled them out of service. And what they do is a cocktail cruise. I remember one of my very first trips to Walt Disney World, very poor planning on my part. I booked passage on this thing and realized very quickly, it's like, oh, I am surrounded by couples.
Awkward.
Yeah, I'm the only guy. But yes, as you went around the water and traveling from Seven Seas Lagoon over to Bay Lake, there was this narration where they pointed out, this is where, we're going to build the Thai hotel, and this is where we're going to eventually build the Venetian resort. And over on this side is where we go to, eventually, the domes of Persia will rise. But the thing that Glenn is talking about, the shopping mall, mid-70s, they had broken Epcot down into its component parts. So, for example, the Walt Disney World Showcase was actually going to be built in the parking lot for the Magic Kingdom, with the notion that the one monorail station there could serve these two separate entities. So you've seen the models or images of this thing. It's the two concentric half circles, Len, where, a courtyard in the center, a courtyard of nations. But to make sure this thing could actually pay for itself out beyond the Ticket and Transportation Center, because at this point they were on their third set of test footings for the Venetian, and each time they pounded the footers into the ground, they just sank out of sight. And they realized, we cannot actually build anything near the water, but there's still a nice chunk of property right behind that. And it's like, what if we were to create a shopping mall? The idea is that the shopping mall would, at an angle, head over to Perimeter Road, over toward the Contemporary. So, in theory, you arrive at the Ticket and Transportation Center, and then it's a question of, okay, where do you want to go? If you want to go over to the Magic Kingdom, hop on a monorail or grab a ferry boat. If you want to check out Walt Disney World Showcase, it's right here. Just walk on in. If, on the other hand, you want to go over to the shopping mall, maybe get a meal, just hang to the right there. And, oh, by the way, if you want to continue on, once you're inside the mall, you're within walking distance to the Contemporary. So this entire chunk of property they were looking to build on. And one of the other reasons that they were looking to build on this chunk of property as opposed to the other 43 square miles, this is in the middle of the Arab oil embargo.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And it's just sort of like, I don't want to have to build any more roads. I don't want to have to build an extension of the monorail system right now. We have all this infrastructure right here. We were clearly not building that Venetian hotel. So let's make use of the land we already prepped to do something and never move forward. But yeah, Glenn heard about a lot on his particular cruise on one of those Oseola Sidewinders. He heard a lot of talk about things that never got built, which is kind of sad.
I'd love to hear the audio from this.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if there's examples of it online.
Well, let's dig around.
I did a quick search while you were talking. I didn't find anything. In fact, I couldn't find even an image of the International Shopping Mall concept. I'd love to see art from that.
This piece of art kept getting reused over and over and over again because it was, hey, this is the Scottish street of our international shopping area. And it's a guy in a kilt and a thatched hut, but also, a very bad 1970s mall ceiling.
Drop ceiling with the styrofoam boards.
There we go. There we go. That's it. Oh, I love the theming here.
All right, here's an email from Maria who says, I want to thank you so much for your advice that you just need to get the right person on the phone for individual annual pass holder issues. Our passes lapsed and I was told by ticketing that I couldn't renew, but VIP pass holder told me to call. The person on the line reached out to a magical service team who was able to give authority to change our renewal date after about an hour on the phone. The new date means we have passes through 2021. Who is this service team, and what does this mean for pass sales in 2021? Are they working with pass holders individually and just dealing with renewals, or do you expect general sales again? So, Jim, a super special service team. First of all, let me just say that we're helping individual pass holders one person at a time, because that's what we do here on the show, Jim. We're givers, right? But a super special service team.
First of all, not something you want to say with a lisp. Do they have capes? I hope they have capes.
If I'm designing the uniforms, they have capes. But let me just preface this by saying I have never had any luck at all getting a consistent answer on very specific ticket questions from any Disney theme park I've ever been to. Jim, you and I, we were both in Disneyland one time. We both had annual passes that started in the same day, and we wanted to convert them to Disneyland passes. Our passes were literally within minutes of being as old as the same age, right? We bought them both on the same day in Walt Disney World. We went to Disneyland and we were both charged two completely different amounts to upgrade those passes. And I have no idea. I've just never seen any consistency. I think the rules are interpreted like traveling in basketball. Like it's one of those things that's open to interpretation.
If I remember correctly, you did say "Mother, may I?"
Simon says. Exactly. Yeah. So is the super special team basically the team who gets all of the hard questions?
Yeah, and there's nothing but hard questions.
Yeah.
Our listener Brian H sent me a fairly lengthy email about he reached out to Disney, he arranged to have his annual pass canceled.
Oh, right, yeah.
And they assured him, and then, the bill came in the next month, and they were still there. And it just sort of like, between the park closures and COVID, Disney guest relations has never been hammered in this way. And given that they are trying in all different directions to do as much guest recovery as they can, there's not a consistent response or effort. And do we give them an A for effort or what, a B? What are we doing?
A for effort. I think the problem is that they don't want to build a computer system to handle these things, because they're anticipating that the issue will go away in a couple of months and by the time that they have the computer system done. So they're relying on individual cast members to do it. My guess is that they're circulating memos like every day saying, here are the new policies for doing this. And also, probably it's up to the individual cast members to figure out how to make the system do what they want, which is probably true for anyone who's ever worked a retail computer system before.
Just 10 minutes ago in the show, you were looking at a patent that clearly Imagineering was involved in, and here's the next generation of character interaction. I don't think this problem's going away anytime soon. We need to put together a solution. So it's like, you have this diametrically opposed take on what's going to happen with COVID or coronavirus. And I long for the days when Disney supposedly had this master plan and they were all marching together in the same direction.
I think whatever they're doing in World, though, is going to pale in effort to what they're going to have to do for Disneyland annual pass holders, because there's so many more of them and they're so very specific about what they want. So we'll see what happens there. Anyway, I'm glad it worked out for Maria, though.
Okay.
All right. Here's a note from Trevor from Saskatoon. He says, hi, Jim and Len. Thank you so much for the weekly podcast. I enjoy all the fun information and history. I recently bought these items on a local garage sale website for $40 Canadian for everything. So I'm not a currency exchange expert. $40 Canadian, I think, is $3.5 million US. It's about right.
That's roughly how Karen and Georgia do the math over at My Favorite Murder. So yeah, you're right, Len. Okay, keep moving.
So he bought three things: a print of Walt Disney, a postcard reply from Disney in 1962 regarding an inquiry about the show The Horse Masters, and then the Disneyland, the First Quarter Century book. And Trevor notes that on page 77 of the book clearly illustrates the graphic scene from the Jungle Cruise that you, Jim, described on last week's podcast. And so, Jim, I've included the photo in the show notes. You'll have to tweet this out. But it's Walt standing in the middle of the zebra scene with the animals feeding on it. And you're right. It looks much more intense.
Yeah.
Than,
In fact, what's so funny is they're actually recycling in that scene. You can see the male lion with his mouth open. This is where they used to insert the zebra shank.
Right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, they pulled him from the front of it to the back. The thing that kills me on this, and it's a great photo that Trevor sent in, is it still looks really barren in terms of landscaping. And there's trees and stuff in the background, but where Walt and his assistant is standing, it's basically concrete and sand.
Holy cow, Len. Look past the guy in white. You see a woman with a blue shirt on, and you can see just beyond there's a gentleman with a suit. I think that's Marty Sklar.
Is it really?
I can remember Marty worked PR back in these days, and this was shot as part of a photo essay for National Geographic. And so Marty's in the background sort of like, all right, please, Walt, don't say anything untoward. Yeah, we used to have a shank in this thing's mouth. But people were grossed out by that, so we rearranged it.
The tourists didn't like it, so we got rid of it.
Yeah, so now it's a sleeping zebra. The lion's watching over a sleeping zebra.
Great find there, Trevor. I hadn't seen that before. That's fantastic. Thank you for sending it in. Jim, speaking of photos, this week's vintage Disney theme park image is Liberty Square and a drained Rivers of America from 1972. Why don't you tell us about this?
First of all, this image comes from a loyal Disney Dish listener who asked not that we not use his name, but wanted to point out that his grandmother.
I know. I know why, too, because I don't think his grandmother was supposed to be in this park at this time.
That could well be. But yeah.
From the photo. Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned fall of 72, and we're looking at a drained Rivers of America. As you look at the image, you can see the haunted mansion with very
with
little
no trees around it.
There you go. Okay. And then as we move to the right, you can see the original boat dock for the Mike Fink keel boats. And finally, in the foreground is the load-unload for what was then known as the Admiral Joe Fowler riverboat. But I want to direct your attention from that dock across the water, or where there would be water, to the construction that's going on Tom Sawyer's Island.
Yeah, that's not where the boat dock is now. What's going on there?
Magic Kingdom opens October 1971, and the boats, riverboat, Mike Fink keelboat, went around the island, and there were some show scenes. I mean, they had the burning settler's cabin. They had the friendly Indian village. They had way too many plastic deer and moose who only their ears moved. But on the front part of the island, the part that was closest to Liberty Square and Frontierland, there was nothing. Tom Sawyer's Island was not an opening day attraction. It opened in 1956. So Magic Kingdom makes it through its first full summer of operation. Labor Day of 1972, they drain the Rivers of America, but not before they first move the Joe Fowler and the Mike Fink keelboats out back to dry dock, and they get their first annual maintenance. Now it's time to build Tom Sawyer's Island, so it's like, okay, let's get out there and put in, for example, what you're looking at there in this photograph, Len, that's them putting in the footers for Aunt Polly's, the quick service, or to be the counter service. But they went out there and they did all of the prep. And then it was a situation where it's like, okay, guys, we've got the foundations in. Get every piece of wood that we're ever possibly going to use when it comes to building Harper's Mill and Fort Langdon. Because
the island,
because once we flood this, it's just like, and go over that list a couple of times, because I don't want to be carrying this stuff out, taking it over to Tom's Landing and then trucking it across the river. But they reflood the Rivers of America in the late fall, just in time for the Christmas crowds. And then, if you were in the park at that point, you could stand, in Frontierland, or stand in Liberty Square and look across the way and watch them building, the buildings on the island. And the construction workers were the very first folks to get to use the raft to go back and forth. Every morning they'd show up, they'd get on the raft, they'd go on over, and work on the fort and work on the mill and all that. And they got it all done in time. In fact, it opened May 20th, 1973, just in time for the oil embargo. So it's like, woohoo, new attraction. Nobody came.
Tom Sawyer Island is one of my favorite attractions in the Magic Kingdom. And my sister Christina and I went on it last month when we were there together. And the thing that I always forget about is they've got a series of caves that you can go through on Tom Sawyer Island. And I think for kids, they're super fun to explore. They're not particularly long. They're not particularly dark. but they're a good sort of introduction to that kind of theme park experience. And every time I go in them, I'm like, this is a nice little thing. The attraction does exactly what it's supposed to do. Also, when I was there, they had made a number of paths one way.
Oh. One thing I found today, which makes me want to go back to Tom Sawyer's Island, is that evidently in the caves, in fact, I guess it's just as you're exiting the escape tunnel complex, there is supposedly a signature on the wall as if Walt Disney himself had signed it. There's just a WD.
Really?
That they put in when they opened this in 73.
Okay, so so right now Fort Langhorne isn't open. At least it wasn't open when I was there last month.
Yep.
But it's the escape tunnel from Fort Langhorne that goes out and sort of to the right.
Yep.
To the left. Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. I've seen a photo of it. The problem is I don't have any reference for where it is in the mouth. It looks like it's got a natural lighting on it. So it suggests that it's just as you're coming out of the cave and it's at kid eye height.
Oh, okay. Good hint. Okay.
Evidently, it's the little kids who say, it's WD, Walt Disney was here. And it's like, well, no. But again, it's cool that it's there. So
it's a nice sentiment.
Yep.
All right, Jim, how can people send us these photos and the stories behind them?
Either give us notification through Twitter, or if they want to reach out directly to me at Jim Hill Media. Our pal Nathaniel B., the gentleman who got this all started, first he gave us 300 photos and now 200 more. So I have some digging to do there, but just like our listener's grandmother shot, I know other folks out there have some amazing photos, and please send them along and we'll see what we can do.
This one's fantastic. So you're going to tweet it out in time for the show?
Yes, I am. Monday morning.
Awesome.
So.
Good job. Good
Okay.
job. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Jim discusses this pre-opening Disneyland memo from C.V. Wood to Walt Disney himself. We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Business. We could all use more time. Amazon Business offers smart business buying solutions, so you can spend more time growing your business and less time doing the admin. I can see why they call it smart. Learn more at amazonbusiness.com.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana lets you buy your next car on your terms. Explore a massive inventory online, filter for what matters, and find your perfect match. Then choose delivery to your home or pick it up at one of Carvana's iconic car vending machines. Every car also comes with a 7-day money-back guarantee, so you can make sure it's the right fit. Buy your car on Carvana. Delivery or pickup fees may apply. Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.
Carvana.
Breathe deep. Imagine your legs more limber in Duluth Trading Double Flex Denim. Envision euphorically squatting for that can of suds, bending for your toolbox in a state of bliss, lunging for your laser level on a whole new level. Relax and allow the flex to fill you with ability. Find your inner flex in Double Flex Denim only at Duluth Trading.
C.V. Wood, as we know, was the guy that Walt hired to lead the construction of Disneyland. And you say you've got a memo from him to Walt that was sent right before the opening of Disneyland. Tell us about that memo. First of all, where'd you get it?
I got it from an issue of the Disneyland line. This was published in 1984, and they were coming up on the 29th anniversary of the opening of the park. And they dug out this memo, which was originally sent to Walt in June 2nd, 1955. So we are 6.5 weeks out from the opening of the park, Len. And it starts with the following represents the best estimate that can be obtained at this time regarding the status of individual sections of the park on opening day. So we start on Main Street, and the first thing CV wants to talk to Walt about is the police station. This and the Lost Children's Playground behind it will be complete. This, by the way, folks, if you know Disneyland, the police station basically was between Town Hall and the fire station. So little building right there. Walt's grandchildren once told me that what they loved about going to the park in the late 50s, early 60s is they'd get to stay overnight upstairs in the firehouse. And when Grandma and Grandpa were asleep, they evidently slept late on Saturdays and Sundays. The kids would sneak downstairs, and then there's a perimeter road out behind the town hall and the fire station, the police station. But then directly on the other side of the road is the jungle for the Jungle Cruise. And so, so they would walk out the back door of the firehouse and go straight into the jungle and then stand there in the jungle and like stick their tongues out and waggle their ears at the now boatloads of tourists that are going by.
They look so real.
That's right. Now, just to step back to these lost children's playground, which is now in the same approximate area. So you're separated from your parents at Disneyland. Okay, the employee collects you and plants you out back in the lost children's playground.
While, just stay here while we figure out what's going on, right?
Okay, so you're there, separated from your parents, and directly across the street on a 30-second cycle are roars and growls, and it's like, oh, kid, you're fine. All right,
you'll be safe here. Look, I'll be back in 10 minutes.
That's right. So I don't think, this is the sort of thing that gets cured with, all right, kid, here's a plush. I mean, we're talking years and years of therapy.
All right, what else is on Main Street in this memo?
Worth noting here that CV tells Walt, Plaza and Hub Landscaping, if all goes according to plan, I think we can be fairly certain that both will be green by opening. Len, that is the most tepid assurance.
Yeah. It's like, well, CV, who would you ask if things are going according to plan? Isn't it your plan?
Yeah. On the last show, we were talking about how Walt actually wanted to do a moving sidewalk into Tomorrowland. That was going to be the big Megillah, the wow moment, that we were going to step off the hook and be able to ride this moving sidewalk right down at the middle of Tomorrowland. And I mentioned that they decided we just can't do it. What's amazing about this memo, again, remember, it's June 2nd, Len, 6.5 weeks before the park opens. So Tomorrowland, CV says to Walt, moving sidewalk decision needed from the design group. It is critical if we are going to have this before opening.
So 6.5 weeks, the design hasn't been completed.
No!
6.5 weeks ahead of time, let alone built.
But here's the thing. It didn't go away, Len. I mean, as strange as it seemed, the technology actually eventually gets used in the mid-60s. Remember the moving walkway that took you from ground level up to the People Mover?
Yep.
This was that technology.
Oh.
When they were finally doing the new version of Tomorrowland, like, wait, that thing we could never afford and never get done. Okay, we can do it now. Now, second thing of Tomorrowland related that CV wants to tell Walt about. Fountains will be installed and will have jets, but it is questionable how playful they will be due to the lead time on heads. So they're waiting on pieces.
Okay.
But CV doesn't know that looming just a couple of days ahead, the local plumbers union is going to go on strike, and they don't resolve their issues with management till 10 days before Disneyland opens. And so at this point, never mind about playful fountains. Walt has to actually make a decision. Do you want working toilets or water fountains? Because the plumbers union only has, enough time before the park opens to put in one. And Walt just made kind of the Sophie's choice. And it's like, well, toilets, we need toilets. And if people get thirsty when they're in the park, they can buy a Pepsi, and that'll make Pepsi-Cola happy, and they're sponsoring a Golden Horseshoe. Now, speaking of bathroom-related stuff, there's a famous story from the opening day of Disneyland. There was a huge traffic backup on the 5 coming to the park plan. What ended up happening is you had a lot of people, the polite way to put this is they're under pressure. A lot of the gentlemen and their small boys, as soon as they pulled into the then only dirt, I mean, they didn't have the money for asphalt, so it's only a dirt parking lot. They hurriedly pull in, they park the car, and then they leap outside and start peeing, openly. Now, here's Roy O. Disney standing up by the entrance of the park. The entire future of the company is riding on this thing being a success. So he watches first, 100 cars come in, and then there's 1,000 cars. And it's just like, oh my God, this thing might actually work. We might actually make some money. And at this point, a parking lot attendant comes frantically running up to Roy, and it's like, Mr. Disney, there are people openly peeing in the parking lot. And Roy smiles broadly, claps the kid on the shoulder, and goes, good, let him pee. So
I didn't realize that the parking lot was dirt back in on opening day.
Oh yeah.
Because the asphalt was going into the park.
And what little asphalt they could get up from San Diego, because remember they were on strike as well.
They were on strike as well. I remember labor actions in the United States.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right, what's next?
Oh, and then we have what CV called Rocket to the Moon, but eventually became known as the Flight to the Moon attraction. Exterior will be complete. We have a good chance on the interior. The big question is how much time is required to perfect the operation. Downside is they didn't make it. Flight to the Moon didn't actually open until July 22nd, 1955, 5 days after the Dateline Disney special that aired on ABC.
Oh, so CV was actually pretty accurate on this one. The exterior was completed. The interior was pretty close. Mm-hmm. And then they needed time for the operation. So good. All right. Good job, CV.
Okay. But they still needed to lead people around the park and show off what had been built. So there's this moment where Art Linkletter is interviewing Danny Thomas outside of the exterior of the still not finished ride. And Danny's like, well, okay, now I'm going to take my kids on the ride. And they turn and walk into the uncompleted building.
And we don't see scaffolding behind them or 2x4s falling down as they walk in. No, we're going to go on this ride that doesn't quite run yet. Sure.
You just see two nice young ladies who are dressed as, attendants of the moon ride. Just take them far enough off camera that, nobody can see you. And we'll wait till they finish shooting and then we come out.
There you go.
Anyway, Fantasyland, CV tells Walt, Castle in the Courtyard, the exterior construction will be complete.
Which is what you need for the TV show.
There we go. Adventureland, we are installing the alligators and the hippo. We plan on...
Sentences you never thought you'd write in a corporate memo for 400, Alex.
There we go. Right. But we plan on flooding all of the park's waterways on the 10th of this month, and this is when Walt learned the hard way that you don't build a theme park on top of a former orange orchard. Every bit of water they poured into the waterways just went straight into the ground. They just sucked it up. And so Walt had to go, okay, we need hundreds of trucks of hard clay. We need to bring workers in here to line the beds of both rivers, and only then we can refill. So 3 weeks behind schedule and another $1 million that Walt didn't have at that time. So
wow.
Yeah. And then... Okay, but you need people to make this dream come true. So the hiring program. And so CV tells Walt it is progressing satisfactorily. Our training program is now set up in the Vandenberg House. This was formerly owned by George Vandenberg, Glenn. He was one of the farmers who sold his land to Walt so he'd then have enough acreage to do his family fun park. The house stood at Disneyland till the mid-1960s. Again, they kept all the imagination and the fantasy inside the park. Because the Vandenberg House was painted white, it became known as the White House.
Sure.
CV goes on to say, we are holding classes daily. Also, all of the arrangements are completed for the processing of employees' medical examinations. We now have 100 employees. We expect to have approximately 550 employees at opening.
550? That's what about 300 times less than they have now in Disneyland?
Oh, God. Move a couple of zeros there, Len. But again, he signs the memo, Woody. And just one final observation here, folks. That so on-site medical examinations for all new hires at Disney.
Yeah, that struck me as unusual because I don't recall ever hearing that as a standard hiring practice, even back in the 1950s.
What I see there, Len, is even back then, the mouse was concerned about making sure that people stayed healthy when they visited Walt's Family Fun Park. So, folks, let's keep that tradition going. Let's wear masks, okay?
That's fantastic. I've never seen this memo before. This is fantastic, Jim.
We did that show, in fact, the Bandcamp, about that memo from 73, and a lot of the stuff that Glenn was asking about, like the Persian and the Thai hotel. Other pages of that memo actually have dates for those things opening. So we should talk about that.
All right, let's do it. We'll make that a Bandcamp exclusive show for our subscribers.
There we go.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for the Disney Dish show today. Please head on over to disneydish.bandcamp.com, where you'll find exclusive shows never before heard on iTunes. On next week's regular show, we'll finish up the history of Disney princesses in the parks. You can find more of Jim at jimhillmedia.com and more of me, Len, at touringplans.com. We're produced fabulously by Aaron Adams, who's grooming his alpacas for the petting zoo at the Kernersville Spring Folly. And let me pause here to say that I don't make up the names of these things, folks. September 25th to the 27th at the corner of Main Street and Mountain Street in beautiful downtown Kernersville, North Carolina. While Aaron's doing that, please go into iTunes and rate our show and tell us what you'd like to hear next. For Jim, this is Len. We will see you on the next show.